Mario.
Hi, Harold. Where were you before?
I went out to dinner.
Oh, okay.
My
All right.
my nephew is leaving for Florida.
Oh, which
Yeah,
one?
Richie's oldest son.
Oh,
Yeah, he's moving to what I think Hollywood.
what is he doing there, or what will he do
He
there?
has a business. He could be anywhere. He sells promotional stuff. You know, you put names on
Ah,
cups and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so he could be anywhere.
Oh, that's good. It's a nice area.
Yeah. His brother already moved there a year
Oh,
ago.
oh. So your brother eventually will be going there also.
It's possible, very possible.
Where does the daughter live?
She lives here in LA. And then
Ah,
he has another son who just moved here. He's a dentist.
oh,
Yeah, so he's working in the business.
okay.
Yeah, so it all works out.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, Yaakov.
Hi.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
Thank God. Just a bit
That
still
was
with
good.
the sniffles, but okay.
Any better?
Maybe it's not.
We love, we go to
Other
church.
journey.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
239.
Yes, Iker V'Tofel,
No.
239. In the first, here we go. Bernie follows here. Okay. Let's
Hi,
wait for
Barry.
Walter and Johnny to sign on. They were just on the Daf Yomi. Hope everybody's well.
Not yet.
What was that?
Johnny hasn't signed up yet.
Okay.
Signed on, I'm sorry.
I know, I saw.
You're learning tomorrow 7:30? Until 8:30?
Delayed, why? Here's Walter.
Like that's like a health assessment for years.
But it's well, the end of War II, but it's a series. But right.
Okay, 239, principle of Iker V'Tofel. The first part of this year, we will continue our study of the laws of brachot by examining the rules of Iker V'Tofel, primary and secondary. The proper bracha to recite on a primary food eaten together with a secondary food.
What page?
239. As we will see, the halakha instructs us that when we eat a mixture of two or more foods together, we only recite a bracha on the most important one. Before we study some of the classical sources on the topic in more detail, we will begin by citing the following comments of the Piskei Teshuvos, who offer some general guidelines about how to decide the proper bracha in a situation of Iker V'Tofel. Da. You should know. There are four categories of primary, secondary. Shlosha misug echad, three of one type. Echad misug achar. So he says the first is shnei minei machalim, two different kinds of food. Echad hu iker hamaychel. The one is the main food. Vasheni bal hatikar. The second comes basically to give flavor to the primary food. Olatakno ulachshir lakilo, or to improve it, or maybe the primary food isn't even capable of being eaten without the secondary food being put in there. Ola hashvot mara yafe. The second ingredient might be added just for coloring. Ola kashet et hamichal, or to decorate. Shein ikar dasa adam ella al echad mehem. There it's clear that the thought of the person who's about to eat this thing is on the primary thing. That's one example. Then, second example, shnei mine machalim umashkim, either food or drink, asher einam ne'achalim yachad. Normally, you don't eat them together. Ella, ekev charifut or mirut or chamitzut. If due to the fact that the food is sharp or bitter or sour, echad mehem hargilot le'echol or lishtot toch te'achilas ha'eker. The second item has been added to the primary in order to make it easier to eat. So it's not that sharp or spicy, in order to be able to eat kedei achilas ha'eker. Or la'achrav min acher kedei l'mayit u'la'akos ha'charifus ha'amrius sh'la'maychel ha'ikari sha'achal. What's the third? Min ma'achal she'ein mishtamesh b'ikaro l'tzarach achilato. The primary normally is not eaten ela kedei lachzik meichel acher shelo yitadfenu yadav. Maybe it's got to be like a structure for the other food, so you don't get your hands dirty. Okay, in kliyofe, I think about like a bread bowl, like it's a nice kli to hold the food. L'maychal acher ikari. So, what is common denominator to these three? The whole reason why you're eating the secondary food is really just because of the primary food. It's coming to support, in some way or the other, the primary food. If it wasn't for the primary there, you wouldn't eat the tuffle. Then he gives a fourth example. Shnei mine machalim, which are only bracha shoneh, that have different brachos. Asher shnehem chashuvim v'kariyim. Both of them are chashuv and ikar. She'irvum yachad ba'ofen asher kimat b'chol kaf v'kaf she'ochel. They have been mixed together in such a way that in every spoon, nimsa mishnei machalim gam yachad. You're eating both together. I think about like a deli roll, where you have a layer of bread, some kind of breading, and then you have cold cuts. So when you take a bite of that, each time you take a bite, you're eating both. Can you say both are ikar? I would think that people like to eat bread, but they like to eat meat like a sandwich. In the first part of the shiur, we will discuss various cases from these categories and see how the halacha may differ as to how many brachos to recite and upon which foods they are recited, depending on the specific case. The following Mishnah and brachos presents the fundamental guideline used to determine the correct bracha when you have a case of ikar v'tafel. Mishnah and brachos. Evilu fun of maliach tchila upasimo. They brought some kind of salted food, probably salted meat or salted fish, with bread. Mevarch ala maliach upoiter sapas. You make the bracha on the salted herring, and that bracha will exempt the bread. Shehapas tfeilalo. In that case, I think of like a herring that's on a cracker. The Mishnah seems to be talking about that the primary, or maybe, but in the Mishnah's case, it was put on a piece of toast. piece of bread. So even in such a case, the Mishnah seems to suggest that the primary is the salted fish or meat that was brought, and the bracha would be made on that, and that would satisfy the bread. Because in this case, hapas tfeila lo. Here the bread was secondary. Zakla. Kolshu ikar v'imo tfeila. If there's a primary and a secondary, but varchala ikar upoiter satfeila. You don't need two brachos. One will cover both. So the Gemara immediately jumps on this Mishnah. The Gemara is surprised that anything is going to make bread secondary. We know the whole concept of kaviyah suda is on bread. That bread is usually the staple and the prime. The Gemara questions that anything would be primary to bread. Amravacha bread of Vaziv Amravashi, Ba'okle Peros Gainus Sarshanu. This was fruits of Gainasar, which are sweet, and they would be eaten along with salted foods because of how the sweetness would make it easier. They would eat bread along with it, but the primary was the other foods. According to the Mishnah, in the case of Vikar V'Tofel, one recites the bracha upon the primary food, and that bracha exempts the secondary food as well. The Gemara asks how the Mishnah can offer an example of Ikar V'Tofel where the bread is secondary, since bread is generally considered primary when eaten together with other foods. The Gemara answers that in the Mishnah's case, the bread is clearly labeled as the tofel food, since it's eaten only to compensate for the taste of the salted food, which was similar to case 2 of the Piskei Teshuvos, which was in turn eaten to compensate for the extremely sweet of the fruits of Gainasar. This is the interpretation of the Gemara offered by Tosfos. Rabbeinu Yonah, by contrast, explains that the fruits of Gainasar were themselves salted in order to counteract the extremely sweet taste. And that's the salted food referred to in the Mishnah. It still deems them ikar when eaten with bread, which becomes tafel. The kolbo is uncertain. The kolbo was a rishon. Is uncertain whether the principle that the secondary food is exempted from a bracha by the bracha of the primary food applies to the bracha achrona, bracha recited after consumption, as well, or only to the bracha rishona. The Beis Yosef cites the kolbo and writes that in his opinion, both the bracha rishona and achrona on the secondary food are exempted. That means if you make a bracha rishona on the ikr and a bracha achrona on the ikr, whatever we deem the ikr, that'll take care of the tafel, both the introductory bracha and the final bracha. Says the Beis Yosef or Chaim, Simon Reish Yud Beis. Kotzav HaKolbo. Tzarech iyun v'hadam, we need to investigate in the case v'hadam rin de mevarcha le'ikru poiter satfela mibracha shlefanea, that which we said that the bracha on the ikr exempts the secondary, that's fine and dandy regarding the bracha that you make in the beginning. Does it also impotro gam ken mibracha l'shachrea? Ad kan l'shona. So the Beis Yosef, quoting the kolbo, says, this is what the kolbo said. V'li nira. So the Beis Yosef says that it's apparent to me, davar pashut, if the initial bracha is going to exempt, then the final bracha will exempt as well. That's in general how the subject matter is dealt with in brachos. V'achi mashma v'ademi d'omer Rav Papa, dvorim rapon b'toch hasuda, machmas hasuda. If you're eating a big meal, and things are being brought into the meal, einam tunim bracha l'lifnei blach ram. When we make hamotzi, we pretty much cover all the things that are brought with the meal. And when we bench, it covers everything else. Of course, we learned that if you bring fruit as a dessert, so that's different. You have to make a boy praetz on that. So that we've already learned. The Shulchan Aruch codifies the ruling of the Mishnah concerning ikar v'tafel as the halacha, including the case where bread is the secondary food rather than the primary one. So if there is something that is served on bread or toast, but the item on top of it is the ikar, then the lechura, it would cover the bread as well. The Shulchan Aruch also rules that both one's bracha rishon and bracha achron except the secondary food. The way he enunciated that in the Beis Yosef. Kol shu ikar umot tefela. If there's a primary and secondary, meaning the secondary is built-in nechshav, is insignificant. The bracha on the primary exempts the secondary. That's the introductory bracha and the final bracha. Lo boy, not only in the case of my ikar mu'uriv ma'tafel, if they're mixed in, no, afilu kol echad levado, even if they're separate. And then he gives the kicker, afilu pas, shuchashav mikol, even bread, which is the most important food, imhu tafel, if in the scenario it serves as a base or structure, or right, because like a crack, if you bring some salted fish on a piece of Melba toast or a piece of toast, let's say, it's meant sort of as a base. No, but you see, Saul is talking about like, here we'll have to see, when you have an avocado sandwich, when you have a sandwich, there, the thought of people might be on both items. You didn't order a plain avocado. See, a herring needs this piece of bread to take away the saltiness. You're not going to eat the herring by itself. It needs a cracker or a kichol or a piece of bread. That's what the Shulchan Aruch here is talking about, where perhaps, we're not saying it's the final halacha yet, perhaps the bracha on the fish will pater. It could be that it's different by a sandwich, a cheese sandwich, or an avocado sandwich. You want a sandwich because you want the bread too.
It's not fair. You take avocado and just put it on the toast.
I understand, but that's an open face sandwich.
But then you got the deli roll store.
Deli roll is something else,
Why?
because let's take it, deli roll, use each bite. Okay, deli roll could be a sandwich in a chanami, could be like this, could be similar. We don't know yet what the status of the sandwich is, whether a sandwich is going to be different than this fish case. I see it a little differently. Afilu pashu choshev mikolim utofel kegon shochel dag malia, bochel pasimo kedei shelo yaziku bigrono. You see what it says here? It says he's eating the bread because if he ate the salted fish by itself, it would damage his throat. It's dangerous. It hurts. So you got to eat it with a piece of bread. You're really eating the fish, and the bread is secondary to it. Mavarach al adag upoiter apas keven shutot. The source of this case of salted fish and bread is the Rambam and the Tur, who seems to have codified the simple understanding of the Mishnah as the halacha, without mentioning the Gemara's interpretation that the Mishnah refers to the fruits of Genasar. The Rambam, Tur, and the Shulchan Aruch may explain that the case of the Gemara is simply an example of the principle that bread can occasionally serve the role of a tafel food. And the same halacha applies with salted fish and bread, as well if one eats the bread only because of the salted fish. So how does one determine which food is the ikr and which is the tafel? The Magen Avraham adds 2 guidelines through which one can determine this designation. Kol shehu harov hu ha'ikr. So first he gives us a guideline that the ikr has to be the majority of the food. The kol sheyesh bo mehei minin azlina basrayim. Then he gives another rule that if it's made out of the 5 categories of grain, then that makes it an ikr. Ulevad sheyeh behem mamish, as long as the grain is in there in substance. Aval if arba b'mayim ad shehu rach, but if the grain was mixed in water until it was soft, mavar shahakol. Based upon the Magen Avraham, the majority food is defined as the primary, unless the other food contains grain, since grain-based products are usually considered the primary food due to their importance. Nevertheless, if the grain is not used to enhance the taste of the food, but its purpose is rather as a binding agent, one recites the bracha of shahakol. This includes foods such as meatballs, potato kugel, or thinly breaded fish, where a minute amount of flour is added for texture. One would cite shahakol on all these types of food. So that's something we can put in our pocket. Meatballs, potato kugel, breaded fish.
Grain,
Huh?
if grain is automatically defined as the primary one, there goes the herring on the bread, because bread is made out of the 5 grains.
I was gonna say, what did the Magen Avraham do with the Gemara? What did the Gemara do? What did the Magen Avraham do with the Shulchan Aruch?
Right.
I don't understand that yet. That's why let's hang in there.
Pellet that he said that anyway.
What was that?
I say it's a pellet because we know that once you have grain, it trumps everything. You know, it overtakes everything else.
So we saw in the Shulchan Aruch above that the rules of Ikar v'Tafel apply both to foods mixed together, as well as to 2 foods that are eaten separately, even if one is clearly Tafel to the other. What is the halacha where both the Ikar and the Tafel food are distinguishable and significant? Do the roots of Ikar v'Tafel still apply, or must one recite a bracha on both foods? The Chai Adam suggests that in this case, one separates the 2 foods and recites 2 brachas. The Mishnah Berurah cites this view in the Shartzi, and it disagrees, ruling that one should still recite a bracha only on the majority food. Harav hu ha'ikr. So the majority food is primary, says the Mishnah Berurah. V'afilu kol min v'min oime b'fnei atzmo, v'nikr nami basarov azlinan. And even if each species of food you can view them independently, we go after the rov. And the Shartzian brings the Prima Godim, the Psicha, the Derech HaChaim, Osiyut Ches, Bedin Dvorim HaMetugonim, talking about fried foods. Ein B'chai Adam, Shedaito Kishenikr Kol Echad B'fnei Atzmo Levarach Beis Brachos. He says, if you can see both items of food, make 2, but it's a suffix in halacha, suffix din, so it's a suffix brachos. Lahakel only make 1. Some poskim, such as Rav Vosner and the Shevda Levi, write that the opinion of the Chai Adam is more reasonable. Binim achloikas of Mishnah Berurah Chai Adam. The sphere of the Mishnah Berurah does lean on B'minan Basarov, that the Mishnah Berurah always goes according to the majority. Ma'od lipi noita b'zeh. He leans towards this. Ma'od lipi noita b'zeh l'shitas ha'Chai Adam. The b'mitzias ein arov koveya, that you shouldn't follow majority. The ha'emet hu im oseh kompot. If you make applesauce, rov bananot uktzat pachot mizeh priya eitz. Let's say you're going to make a kompot the majority are going to be bananas and some apples. Ushneim nikarim eitet, and you can see both. V'chibishvil yesh chaticha achat yoter mimin achat yikbar rov neged ma shekavanato be'emet l'shneim. Your kavanah is to eat banana and apple. So technically, he likes the chayodam, where you make two different brachos. In any event, Rav David Yosef rules in the Halacha Brura that when one is uncertain which food constitutes majority, one may follow the opinion of Chayodim, separate the two foods and recite two brachos. So based on the Magen Avraham, if we got a cracker with a herring on it, since the cracker is made of the 5 grain, you would make the boyer name is zoynos, and that would pater both. According to Chayodim, if you wanted to eat them separately, you'd make a mazonos on the cracker and a shahakol on the fish.
That seems to be against the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch, as we said, and the Gemara.
Yeah, but we usually follow the Magen Avraham, who's later beyond the Shulchan Aruch. I'm going to send an email to Podloshak because I don't see that they resolved it at all.
No.
Maybe we could go further.
Okay, maybe. Well, here, one food used as a base for another food. In some cases of Iker v'Tofel, one who eats one food that is supported by another, that often comes from grain, which was case 3 in the Piskei Teshuvos. And that's, I guess, herring on a cracker, anything on a cracker. What bracha should one recite? The Beis Yosef cites the Kolba, who discusses the bracha for one such case of jam or other spread on a grain-based wafer that one does not have specific intent to eat. I guess you wanted to eat the jam, but not necessarily the wafer. Because of Tzurba M'Rabanan, which is a jam, shemotzin al rikikin, dakin, that they bring the jam on thin crackers. It says the crackers are clearly secondary. They're not coming here to eat bread. They're coming to eat like delicacies. The crackers, the whole purpose of it is to stick the jam on it. What are you going to just stick? You stick your fingers into a jam thing? Your hands are going to get dirty and sticky. So in that case, the rokik is tofel. And he says clearly that the brach of shahakol on the jam, or let's say that's a machlokas, remember, the Sfardim and Ashkenazim, whether if you break down fruit, does it lose the shame of the fruit? Shachrach rules that also one recites a brach on the spread alone. Jam that's placed on crackers. The crackers are tofel. Because they're coming here to eat delicacies, not bread. Again, the Magen Avraham throws a wrench into this. Notes that this halacha applies only when the wafers have no taste. But if one enjoys their taste as well, then you recite a bracha of a boyer me'emizonis on the crackers. So you see, at least the Magen Avraham is consistent with himself. He argues with the Shulchan Aruch clearly. Aval b'medinos elu. Magen Avraham lived in Europe. Shemenichin merkachas ala duvshonim shetoivim l'maichal, on crackers that are tasty. Im kein kavanas gamke lachilas duvshonim v'rachaleim. So again, I would say we eat crackers because we like to take of crackers. We're not just eating it for the herring. So based on this, you would make the boyer me'emizonos noise. Certainly, if you ate it together, it would cover the fish. The Machzis Shekel explains that in the case of the Magen Avraham, where the wafers or other grain product on which the jam is spread are tasting their own right, one must recite two brachos, one on the wafer, one on the spread, unless the spread is entirely ancillary to the wafer. Very few people eat jam on its own. You eat jam
With
No.
a spoon.
eat it with the cracker or with the bread. People don't stick a fork in jam and eat it. I guess you could, but that's not noyeg, right? That would not be the normal way of eating it. That's what he's saying.
Can't you?
So therefore, the spread could be completely subservient to the wafer, and you don't need to make a second brach on the jam.
Can't you just equally say that the jam enhances the flavor of the bread? Like peanut butter on bread? I mean, you're eating the bread, but the bread itself doesn't taste that good. So you add the jam. I mean, I think you can equally say that it enhances the taste. It's not I'm gonna have some jam, so let me have bread also. It's you're gonna have, bread with jam because that's enhances the flavor of the bread.
Okay, so the Machzis Shekel is just warning us that if you really like the jam as well, you should make two brachos, unless
Okay.
it's completely subservient to the bread or the cracker. That's what he's saying. And yes, I would think most of us like the herring. We like and it also probably would mandate us to make two brachos, like the Chai Adam. That's how Rav Vosder seemed to end up as well.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
If you make a motzi, you eat a whole meal with a motzi, and suddenly you can eat jam with a piece of motzi.
Okay, so the Kviyas Asuda has a different din. So here we're talking about
You
you go to a cocktail party, and there is no bread, and there is no Kviyas Asuda, and they're giving you these delicacies. So that's where this issue is going to come up. In the Suda, you make a motzi and it covers everything. That's the Suda. Here we're not having a Suda. You're eating hors d'oeuvres, delicacies.
You eat enough, you have a Suda there. Sometimes people say you should bench on that. You go to a smorgasbord, you eat more than you eat at the regular meal. Was that not a Suda?
So we
Just
learned that.
because you
You should wash and eat your bread. That'll potter
I'm
everything.
just saying. So the same thing could take place here. What are we talking about?
Well, here we're not talking about somebody that's, first of all, we're not talking about a motzi here. We're talking about crackers.
Crackers, okay. Okay, crackers is a different thing.
So we call Mokum Tzarech Levarach Gam Ken Ala Merkachas. The Machzor Circle says Beferush, you'd have to make a brach on the jam. V'tzarech Levarach Tchila Al Duv Shanim on the crackers Shebrachos and Berman Zonos Shekodemis Lebrach Acheres, and that would have to be done first. K'moshe Kosu Im Lo Shaduv Shanim Iker When Tzarech Levarach Ala Merkachas. He says unless the cracker is the whole thing, and then you have Iker v'tofel, and the Iker will pater the tofel. How do we define whether a food is considered independent or secondary to the wafer? The Piskei Tshuva writes that it depends upon whether the additional food or spread is eaten alone as well. If you would not eat this item by itself, ela kimamarech, you'd eat it only as a spread, or kitosefes l'maychel acher, or as an additional to another food, then birchosun itfeles l'maychel hashem, then it becomes the tofel. Aval pi shenene v'chavi, like what Yaakov said. Oh, he loves jam, as it hamimarech v'tosefet. L'pamim af yoter meiri, maybe you like it better than the ikar. Become kamosa rabba leikar, and it might even be more. Still, the Piskei Tshuva says the spread, if you don't eat it independently, it becomes secondary. But if you eat crackers, matziot, that's what he means, matziot, small crackers, or other mizonos, yachad im basar, with a piece of meat, Prusas basar, deli, naknik, sausage, dagim, fish, dagim aluchim, salted fish, salty dagim luineim, yerokos, vegetables, all of the canopies, prusos yerokos, piece of vegetables, visalat yerokos, beitzim v'chol chayotze behem, eggs, v'chol elu aderech lachshiv gama toisvus, le'ikr lachila v'svus. We have in mind these other items as well as ikr. Therefore, Yavarch aleim v'yitam mikol min b'nifrad. You should make a separate bracha on each species. Al pi dine kadima b'brachos. You have to follow the order. Betchila mine mizonos. Mizonos are always more, right? They're a higher level. V'achakach mine adama. Then you have the adama foods. V'achakach sha'akol. And boyer priya eitz goes before adama. This was the famous faher for when the chusin was invited over to the shver's house to be tested. Are they worthy for their daughter? So this was classic. They would put a whole bunch of things in front. They wanted to see what kind of brachas he made. Did he know how to make the brachas? Which kedim the brachas? What kind of talmid is he? Was anybody subjected to that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Smart thing is you just said, I'm not hungry, you ate nothing. That's the way to get around that. And then they knew you were a fool and you knew nothing.
When I went to Susie to pick her up the first time,
Not the first time.
her mother put out these beautiful chocolates. I was not a child. They thought I was like from Mars because I didn't touch one thing because it just wasn't my thing. And they go, he didn't touch a chocolate. Okay. Which bracha should be recited when eating stuffed cabbage or stuffed peppers filled with rice or meat? Here too,
You missed the first part of the
I'm
paragraph.
sorry. I'm sorry, Yaakov. According to this, if one eats a cracker with peanut butter, for example, one recite mizonos on the cracker and no bracha recite on the peanut butter. Since peanut butter is generally not consumed alone. Boy, you haven't seen snackers go into the refrigerator for the peanut butter and then go right into it. I know, but I would guess here they're saying it's not normal. But if one eats tuna, on a cracker, though, one recite a mizonos and then a shahako, if one values both foods, since both are considered important and are often eaten independently. So that's our guide. If you eat, I eat herring all the time without a cracker. I prefer that. So based on that, you should say the mizonos and then you say a shahako. So you have to eat, you have to make a brach on the granola.
First thing I do is mizono for the
Yeah.
granola, then I do a ha'etz because there's almonds
Yeah.
in it and blueberries.
Go ahead.
And then I eat a shahak.
Okay. Susie is telling me that she has a breakfast
And
of yogurt, blueberries, and granola.
with nuts in it.
She makes the brach on mizonos first, then she makes a ha'etz on the blueberry,
And almonds.
and then she makes the bracha shakal on the yogurt. I think that's correct.
You would be a suitable bride. Okay.
So what bracha should be recited on stuffed cabbage or stuffed peppers? We eat that a lot. Here too, the vegetable serves as a base for the filling inside, which is the ikar. So the meat is the ikar, and the vegetable is like a base for it. Is a wrap, right? You stuff it. But unlike the previous cases, none of the supporting foods are grain-based, right? A green pepper or a cabbage is just a ber pri adama. It's not a grain. Therefore, it is logical that no bracha is recited on the pepper or cabbage, since they are used only as a base for the filling. And so you'd make a shahakol, and you would forget about the vegetable. Indeed, the piece. What was that?
What would you do if you had for example, a tuna salad? The salad is as important as the tuna fish, although the tuna is primary. You would make the Adama if you think they're both equivalent part of
What
your.
kind- what
make it
kind
on
of
the
salad?
Adama first.
You mean you have green lettuce and there's pieces of tuna?
Yes, your lettuce and tomatoes. You make the Adama first before you make the shakal,
Yes.
even though the tuna is the primary caloric value of the meal.
You think, well, there, I'm not sure which one is ikr and which one is tafel. People have a salad and they have tuna like as a sort of an additional to it. What would be ikr and tafel there, Bernie?
The tuna is the filling part of the meal.
Wait a minute, he's only ordering it for the tuna.
Yeah, but we had these rules. Remember they talked about rove? Remember there's rove. The Magen Avraham gave us those two rules. Which one is rove? That's ikr. So we have a salad, it's rove. And then grain, but this one's not grain. No, you're machshiv the tuna fish. I agree with you. I think it requires another bracha. You're machshiv it, but I'm not sure I would consider it ikr. Because it doesn't fulfill rove. And a salad, for example, if you put olives, pieces of olives in the salad. An olive grows from a tree, gets a boy priya eitz. In the laws of Kedima, it would go first. But wouldn't you consider that just as a topping? It's like a filling. I think that would be considered secondary. And if you're machshav it, you'd make two. And if not, it could be ikr v'tofel, and the brach on the ikr would cover it. I think the same thing could follow the tuna. But these are good, they're all good kashas. Piskei Tshuva says, Uvizmanenu kruv, stuffed cabbage, kishuim, stuffed zucchini, opilpel, stuffed pepper, mimulabe basar, filled with meat, or as rice. Ein levarech ala kruv or apilpel v'chadoma kitofel. He paskins that it's secondary. Another common case of ikr v'tofel is that of an ice cream cone. Should one recite the shakal alone on the ice cream, mizonos alone on the cone, or both brachos?
I want to know why. I want to know why in all these examples we've had, it was necessary to create a picture of an ice cream cone and stuffed peppers. This is the only thing we don't know. Everything else we understand, or was somebody having fun? I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that.
They
Okay,
had an empty space, Jacob.
that's probably more
Yaakov.
like it. Yes.
Yaakov, likely they like ice cream and stuffed
Yes.
peppers. That's what so they have to come up with that. Obviously,
By the way, my wife also likes to make red peppers, and I enjoy green pepper. Yeah, because the pictures of a red pepper.
Oh, I didn't even see the.
Well, probably the bracha is the same, so it's a
Yeah, the
distinction.
bracha is the
Not
same,
a
but I'm
difference.
just talking about from preference, I prefer green.
Most people don't.
Okay.
Susie claims most people don't. I just,
Okay, anyway.
show of hands. Okay. Rav Moshe addresses the case of ice cream sandwich and a fruit pie with crust. He rules that in these cases, if a person enjoys the crust or sandwich part, then one recites mizonos on them, and then a bracha on the ice cream or pie filling. I think that's for most of us like that. When you eat apple pie, you're enjoying the pie part. And when you're eating an ice cream cone, you're enjoying the cone part. If one does not enjoy the mizonos component, then you recite a bracha just on the inside. That's how Rav Moshe paskins. Chaticha shel mizonos nichrat v'chashuva sheru'uya v'chaviva lechol b'fnei atzma. You have a cookie, which is choshev in its own right. Kigon krichim dakim shel glida. Thin wafers of ice cream. ice cream, wafers,
Wafers.
wafers. Or botzek dak memula perot metukim, or some kind of pie crust or strudel. Pie crust or strudel. Rotza lechol otan rishon b'fnei atzman. Yesh lo reshut levarach b'rei min hamazonos tchila. V'achar kach ala ikar. So there, the ikar is the filling or the ice cream. But you can make, if you're going to enjoy it, you can make the mazonos first. He says many people, and he says maybe a majority will enjoy the mazonos aspect of it. So he says, make a mazonos, eat a piece of the cone first. Or you make you boy prayer eights if it's an apple. Now, even according, remember, gentlemen, we learned machlokas Sfardim the Ashkenazim that if you took apples and you crushed them so you can't tell that they're apples anymore. So remember, the Sfardim are still making a boy prayer eights, but the Ashkenazim we say shakel. But an apple pie, at least the one my mother makes, Olav Shalom, or my wife, you see pieces of apple. So there we would make a boy prayer, it's no question about it. Most apple pies are like that, right?
They're all
They're all like that.
nobody puts apples.
Right. You see pieces of apple.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that would require its own bracha. Aval elu shein ritzonam ela b'mamamula. Somebody who only wants the ice cream. Ach she'ochlino samach mas shein al kol ponim sham, but they eat the mazonos because they're there. Yivarchu rak ala glida, the ala mamula. You just make the bor parades on the apple filling or on the ice cream, the shakel on the ice cream. If it's really tafel for that individual, and he really doesn't care about it, the bracha on the ikr will pater the tafel. Going to Rav Moshe then, if when eating an ice cream cone, does not care about the cone, he recites a bracha on the ice cream alone. While if he also enjoys the taste of the cone, then he should recite mizonos and then shakel. Rav Forst writes as well that the halacha depends on whether one enjoys eating the cone or ice cream sandwich, and notes that non-sugar cones are often not eaten for their taste. Clearly, the ice cream is the ikar, requires a shakel. He's talking about those old coin, those sugarless cones that, oh yeah, they were tasteless. I haven't seen one of those cones in a long time. Do they even have those? Whether one or not recites a mizonos on the cone depends on its function. A tasteless cone used only to hold the ice cream requires no bracha, while a tasty sugar cone eaten also for its taste requires a mizonos. And then the ice cream sandwich is the same thing. The ice cream is not the ikar, requires shahakal. The biscuit, however, adds to the taste of the sandwich, requires a bracha. One first says a mizonos on the biscuit, followed by shahakal on the ice cream. On the other hand, Rav Avadia Yosef writes that if the mizonos component is significant and tasty, such as with an ice cream sandwich, then this would be a case where the mizonos food is automatically defined as the ikar. Therefore, one recites mizonos alone and exempts the ice cream. So you have a little bit of a machlokas, but we have to rely on. Let us address one final common case of ikar v'tafel, cereal eaten with milk. The cereal is certainly considered ikar in most cases, but does one recite a bracha on the milk? Rav Moshe Feinstein, I would say yes. I don't know. Rav Moshe Feinstein addresses this case and rules that where a person is not interested in extra milk on its own, one would recite a bracha only on the cereal. Daisa shel chameshes aminim, cereal, made of the 5 grains. Aval pi shemosifin chalav u'shar minei metika, even though you put milk and other ingredients like sugar and spice. He says, "Mavarchin borim in mezainis." Hinei chalav shenoisnim b'daisos, hayaveshes toli b'kamus hachalav. He says it depends on how much volume of milk, beinim hu tzamei, or if he's thirsty or low. The imu rak kederech b'nei odam hanosnim chalav latamas achilas adaisos adds the milk only to sort of to add the flavor to the cereal. V'af im eno l'tam, and not for the taste of the milk. It also makes eating the cereal easier. It goes down the throat easier. It's moistened. Then the milk would be tofel, kivin shumurav, v'rak b'shir hazeh. Shlachein afshu tzamei v'nene gam me'achalav. If he was thirsty, and he's slacking his thirst from drinking the milk, kishoisehu rak kishnestalik tzmo b'achila. Sometimes you can slake your thirst just by eating, I think is what he's saying, and it still doesn't require a new bracha. However, in nasnu cholav harbe, if you adds a lot of extra milk, because he wants to sip that little extra milk at the end. I'm there. I know, but I like to drink. I like the milk that's in my cereal. So you want to drink some of it. So that's why I thought that would be the answer. He benefited from the milk, even though he wasn't thirsty. It's as if he's drinking a glass of milk along with the cereal. He must, if people put bananas in their cereal, this is completely separate from the cereal. Even though they're now together. Al tsukar, on sugar ein levar klal. Shu davar namuach, it melts and dissolves. Ubatel l'chol davar shenotim sham tzukar. I mean, it's going to be, what's the bracha on sugar? It's going to be shackle. And so if you put sugar in a tea, you make shackle for the tea, it's not like you're going to have another bracha.
Cereals that have little pieces of food in them now becomes dry.
So if it's something you can see and it's a davar charsal is asking, you buy cereal that has dried fruits. Okay, why is that any different than if you cut the banana yourself? I think it would be the same thing. If you can see it as the fruit, like a strawberry, it looks like a strawberry.
Yeah, but they're usually not, they're hardened, and so they basically lost all the fluid from, so the taste of the fruit, a big part of the, what makes fruit favorable is the juice that comes out of the fruit.
Okay, so Bernie, we go back to the machlokas we had between the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah regarding when you process fruit, and how far you go, and then you don't make a boy praetz anymore. Remember, the Ashkenazim, we say shackle on most of it. If you process the fruit, it's the Sephardim that say you still have to say boy praetz even though it's been made into kumpa. Dried fruit may be different. Rav Moshe's ruling is accepted by most contemporary poskim who address this issue.
So we still have the issue of the machlok. It seems the machlokas of the Magen Avram and the Shulchan Aruch and the Gemara about whether if you have salty herring on bread, whether you make a hamotzi or not. Right, according to the Magen Avram, he says that if anything contains one of the 5 categories,
you make them as zoinos.
Oh,
Even a cracker, forget bread. Even a cracker. I know, but I'm gonna send an email to Podlushan.
Okay.
Because they just didn't resolve that. They brought them up in Avram, and it was an obvious stira, and didn't address it. Surprised.
Right.
But based on what we've learned further, it sounds like we would make the separate from all the examples they gave us. You would make them as zonos and you'd make a shakal. Or you'd make it on motzi. Again, we wouldn't make it on motzi unless you ate a certain amount of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Breaded foods and other examples of ikar v'tofa. We saw above that if a mixture includes a grain product, the grain product is assumed to constitute the ikar, and one recites bezonos. This principle is mentioned in the Gemara in Brachos, that one recites bezonos on any food that contains grain. Rav Shmuel Damar Tava called sheyesh bo mechamesh taminin, food that has of the 5 grains. However, recent posting discussed whether the same halacha should apply to schnitzel, chicken cutlets, or breaded fish, or veal Milanese, breaded veal cutlet, or other foods where breadcrumbs or other grain products serve only as coating to the chicken. Some poskim, such as Rav David Yosef and Halacha Bro, hold that it depends upon the quantity of the coating. Basar o ofot o dagim, meat, fowl, fish, shemitzapim otam mikol tzaddim, that are breaded on their whole surface area, bekemach, with flour, umetagin otam, and you fry it. Imaya kemach muat bioter, if it's a light dusting of flour, but often shenikra davar shelo natnu ela ach v'rak kadesh lo yidbeku b'machmas, where it's recognizable that the amount of flour that was used was just so it shouldn't stick, then mevarach l'mashakol. Aval imay kemech meruba, often shenikara davar shenitanato aleim ukadei latet behem tam. You know, today's breaded stuff, it has its own flavor. It's thick. It's heavy. That's what he's talking about. Lora kadesh lo yidbeku mevarach aleim mizonos. And I would say that the majority of our breaded products are like that today. I remember my mother Thursday nights when they made milchitz and they made breaded fillet of soles, very light. It was just just a dusting. That's what he's talking about. Then he'd say a shahakol. But our breadings today, which are very thick, he's saying would not be that. Others, such as Rav Vosner, writes that the principle that a grain is always considered the primary food does not apply where it serves as a coating. Thus, breaded fish or chicken would warrant a brach of shakal, not mezonos. Umasha shoal kvodo binyan dagiba metuganim bekemach. Matzah im beitzim. Dough with eggs. Given the lahavil devek bivlad. El gam litain tam. He said it's not just to avoid sticking, but it's for taste itself. Im levarch barman of zonos v'hera lechuvas avnei nezer. He referred to a response of the Avnei Nezer, but he says, but Rav Ozer says, I don't have it in front of me. He thinks it's a simple thing that you don't say the mizonos. Davel pishen ledavik, even though it's not just to avoid sticking. The ikar is the fish. Make the brach on the fish, and that'll pater the tofil. The Sefer Vizos HaBracha writes that one recites mezonos on a Middle Eastern dish called kibbeh, which is a dumpling consisting of dough on the outside and meat or other filling on the inside. In this case, the dough is significant in its own right, in addition to serving as the covering for the filling. Couscous, the kuba, mavarch mezonos. Another case of a mezonos coating is cracker nuts, which consists of a peanut on the inside and an outside covering made of wheat. The Pninei Halacha, Rav Eliezer Melamed, writes that if the bracha is mezonos, since the outside wheat shell is designed for flavoring, it's just part of the food. Cracker nuts, Japanese-style peanuts. They're called American peanuts in Israel, even though they don't originate in the United States. They come from Mexico. So, Botnim Amerikayim, These
Mexico.
cracker nuts.
Mexico, we actually, that should be the opposite way around. We live in Mexico, so it should be the same thing.
הם בוטנים שמוצפים בשכבה עבה של קמח עם מתיקות. They have flour and sweet ingredients. Given שהקמח הוא אחד ממרכיבי המאכל, grain is part of this. ברכתו מזונות, ואם אכל מהקמח לבדו, כשיר זית, if he ate enough of the flour as a zayis, מברך בסוף על המחיה. ואם לא אכל מהקמח שיר כזייס, אבל משני המרכיבים יחד, but if together אוכל כשיר זייס, יברך בור נפשות. Okay. One more halacha. It's important to note that the rule of reciting a bracha on the ikar food of a mitzvah alone, on a mixture alone, applies only when one eats two foods together. But if the two foods are placed separately, and one eats one food first, and then eats the second, he will recite the bracha for each separately. Ochel, to answer Walter, shelo b'toch hasuda. You're not eating a general meal. You're snacking. And he's eating a tafshil, a cooked dish, or orez, or rice. Umunach lufanav batzlachas chatichas ov. There's also a plate of chicken, or schnitzel, or basar. Ima basar mu'urav ima orez. If the meat is mixed with rice, gam kisha ochlolo vado, even when he eats the rice alone, einu mavarch ala basar shu tofel lagabe orez. The meat, he says, is secondary to the rice. But if the meat is separate, or is he eat it separately from, it's not with the rice, then mavar kamal basar. Whether he ate it from the beginning or at the end, in the middle. Especially if everything was cooked in the same dish. And the rice was something else. If you eat the meat with the rice, you make the bracha for the rice, and the meat is considered secondary. Va'ochal orez, ve'apuna peas, muravim zeh b'zeh. Peas gets a boyer pri adama. So he wants to know, what do you do? Or is v'gezer, right? Peas and carrots with rice. Or he has carrots in the rice. Vitzimuki, muravim, and raisins. Mavarch barmin and zonos bilvad. These things are considered secondary to the rice. The rice gets them as zonos, and it covers the other things. If you have rice and peas on one plate, but they're separate, he made the mizonos on the rice and ate the rice, and now he wants to eat peas. He makes a boy piradam on the peas. He's eating rice with pepper, with pickles, or olives. If he eats the pickle with the rice, then the mazonos will cover the pickles. The chashav ketova. First he ate the rice, he made a mazonos. Then he ate the pickle separate. Or velazeisim bor praetz. You're not eating the pickle. You're not eating the pickle to remove the taste of the rice. So it's not considered tofel. Okay. So
Why
I do
is this-
believe we will finish next week. I did order the volume 15s. They should be coming. And I'll try to distribute it between now and next week.
Why
Okay.
is rice and peas different than salad and tuna? Where we all agreed salad and tuna, you make a bracha both, or Susie's yogurt and granola. Why is rice and peas different?
No, I mean, he said when the peas are mixed with the rice and you ate it as a combo, we said the oil, the boiling and the onions would cover it. But if you had a plate of now, so we said by the salad that you'd make an adama on the salad and you'd make a shahakol on the tuna.
Okay.
You
Okay.
want to say that the adama should cover, what do you want to say?
Ernie,
Yaakov, yes.
sorry, you asked Jacob a question.
Yaakov, what do you
I
think?
don't see the difference. I mean, if we said on yogurt that's together, you eat it together, you make separate brachas. Why is it that rice and peas you don't make separate brachas? You're eating it together.
I can
What's
promise
the
you
difference?
that's what I was going to say. I can promise you can. I eat the same thing, and it's very hard, much harder than peas and rice to separate because the yogurt mixes in together with the blueberries, and each time it's not a simple thing to separate right away all the things because you have to dig them out. You mix the yogurt also with that.
Yeah, by the way, when I eat rice and peas together, I don't dig them out. I eat it together. There, it's more of an ikar tuafa where the taste of the peas are coming from
Ernie, I'm telling you that yogurt, right? We said you make separate brachas but you eat them together, but you have to dig it out. The peas and rice, you don't even have to dig it out. You just take out one piece, take out one piece of rice. It's different.
And that may be the answer to Yaakov's issue as to why the bracha on the rice covers the peas when you're eating together like that.
I don't know how you dig out the granola from the rice, from the yogurt, or the example that Bertie gave, salad and tuna. I mean, you mix them together, and yet we agreed that we'd make separate brachas. How is that different?
Yeah, Ernie, Yaakov's asking a good question. Come on.
Well, first of all, we didn't get a psak on the tuna and the salad. We came up with our own psak. I don't know what we have to analyze it properly.
That's possible, but applying the rules that we learned, we all agreed. Certainly with Susie's yogurt, we all agreed that seemed to be the right way to do it. So why is that conceptually different?
Susie is jumping in here. She doesn't mix it. She eats the granola.
No, it's all on the same plate.
It's all on the same plate.
Okay.
It's not a big mushmash. She eats the granola and she eats her fruit and she eats correct? She doesn't eat them as a mushmash. And it could be how we eat it makes a difference.
But the way I eat it, I mean, we mix it all together. I agree that if she doesn't mix it together, with the separate brachas.
But Yaakov, you saw when we have cereal and bananot, Rav Ozer himself said you make two separate brachas. You eat that together too.
Correct. Same difference. So why is that different than peas and rice?
No, because they're talking about this rice that they always make. It's just a sprinkle of ground beef.
No, peas, rice and peas is what they were talking about. Like we like that, peas and carrots and rice. Okay, so we have a few questions. We have a few questions that we have to send, get Ha'oros on. We'll try to, now Podlashek is in Miluim. I got an email from him. He's not available. There's another guy, Neil Botner. And he told me that Rav Podlashek is in Miluim on the front because he's a young guy. Walter and I had dinner with Rav Podlashek, I don't know, 6 months ago. He's young, so he's still in Miluim.
So maybe we shouldn't bother him. Maybe we should try.
Everybody should have a Yeshua, that's all. Okay.
Okay, Shkoch, very good.
Good night, everyone.
Good share, everybody.